Jamie, you mentioned before part of your journey was you didn't know to not bypass your team. And
Mm.
so that was quite a bit of a challenge for you to get over. So we've mentioned this in the past in certain conversations, but can you talk us through the no bypass policy, how it works, and the steps people can take to implement it?
Yeah, sure, Brent. Ed's probably the master at this one because he taught me. But basically, if you don't use the no bypass policy, I've also had the management theory call it direct line reporting. I never really understood what it was until Ed explained it. But basically, you can see there we've got the Wize ideal team. And at the end of the day, the senior client manager shouldn't bypass the senior production manager and direct or instruct the rest of the team. Because if you do that, you're only undermining that person. Even if we go a level higher, if we've got, firm owners listening, and I know some of you are working on and making plans to put a senior client manager in place. Now, once you've gone through the process, and it's a gradual process to putting a senior client manager in place, if you don't use the no bypass policy and you continually talk to the clients or continually talk to the team, you're only going to undermine their authority, you'll undermine their accountability, and it will just create confusion. And I've been through this. It helped me over the years, but when I removed myself slowly from the business, if I kept instructing the clients, telling the clients what to do or the team what to do, it just created confusion, because then the senior client manager or even the senior production manager was just out of the loop. So you get all this confusion, Brenton. And again, a firm will be a reflection of the owner. So if the owner shows really good no bypass policy skills and implements that, then the firm will run smoother, the communication lines will be better. But if you don't have the no bypass policy in place, then it can end up in chaos and no one knows what they're responsible for. So Ed might touch on it a bit more.
Yeah.
But
Ed,
so,
anything to add to that?
Oh, yeah. I often get firms say to me, oh, I wish my staff would take more responsibility for the clients if it all comes back on my desk and on my shoulders. And when I observe them operating, I say to them, why do you've asked your senior client manager to be responsible for the team, and you've asked the senior client manager to be responsible for the clients. Why do you undermine him or her constantly? And he or she say to me, well, undermine, I don't do that. And they do it without knowing that they're doing it. I mean, their heart's in the right place because they want to help out. So in this diagram, as an example, the partner would go down to the counter, the blue person in the diagram, and start giving instructions to the person and say, look, I've got a client, Jim, he's got a BAS, got to get done really urgently. And he goes to the senior accountant, the blue person, and gives him the job to do and bypasses the senior client manager, the orange and the green, and goes straight to the accountant. And then if you constantly do that, eventually the senior client managers will say, well, if you want to manage the staff, you manage them then. I'll sit back because you tell me to manage them, but you just keep undermining me, and on my authority. So what authority will I have with them? Having said that, I want to be very clear that the no bypassing policy doesn't mean that the partner can't go and talk to the team, like the senior accountant and the bookkeeper. Bypassing policy is simply about not giving instructions to them, except it needs to come through the senior client manager and the senior production manager, the green and the orange. Now, of course, you can go talk to them. I go talk to my staff all the time, and I say things like, how are you going? Any problems? Any blockage to production? And if one of the blue people, just so that it's easy for you to look at it, it says to me, oh, yeah, I've got this problem, then I don't give him or her the answer. I go back to the senior client manager or the senior production manager, and I said, look, we seem to have a blockage to production here. And then I give them back to that person to resolve. And I might even give them a bit of a tip. I'll say, look, maybe look in this area or do it this way, and that should fix it. And often, the three of us will be in the room and we talk about it, but you don't undermine the people that give an authority priority to get the work done.
I agree 100% with Ed, and just a couple of practical circumstances, being through this probably more recently with Ed, but once I'd went through the process and, I'd founded the firm and met all the clients and handed over the work with the emails, I used to bring the senior client manager back in and say, hi, Joe, you met Ash the other week. Ash, what do you think about this particular circumstance? And it provided you're timely and responsive. Ash, you get the senior client manager answer, and then they get the communication lines flowing. And even the same with phone calls. Sometimes a client would call me and I'd do a conference call. If everyone knows how to do a conference call on your iPhone, then I would just get a conference call and say, hey, Paul, I've got Joe here, met the other week. What do you think about this? And that might only be the 20% of the clients who just need that more educating. And again, you're not bypassing them, but you're slowly but surely bringing these people in at the senior client managers and building that relationship. There's just a couple of little practical things that I did. And after that, the clients are normally fine. Might take another go, one or two more goes, but that was just a practical way just to not bypass them and educate the clients and show good leadership.
I think it's an important point to note here is this policy specifically, as Ed mentioned before, it's not easy. It certainly wouldn't be the right thing to sit here and say that it's an easy one to implement it. And it doesn't happen overnight. This is very much a habit change that we have to instill in ourselves, and then also help other team members instill in themselves and their team. So don't set the expectation on yourselves that this is something that you can implement and just it falls into place next week. Is that the case, guys?
100%. It will take time, and what Jamie said earlier is true. 80% of the staff, 80% of the clients, once you tell them what it is, that they can do it, the 20% will take longer to change their habits. So if it's a client, they'll keep coming back to you because it takes them longer to change their habits, but you've just got to persist, and you've got to show leadership, and you've got to persist. And the staff is the same. So 80% will say, yep, no problem, got it. And 20% will continue to bypass, so that the grinder accountant down below, he or she will bypass the manager and go straight to the partner. And then you've got to find them, go through the senior production manager, or take them down to see the senior production manager, and the three of you discuss the problem. And my experience has been 80% will just follow it, 20% you've just got to work a bit harder. And then there'll be a handful, just a handful, that is just not possible to change their habits, and you've got to decide something else with them. But the majority of
that makes perfect sense.